Good afternoon, guys. It's about 6:30, according to my clock and or phone and or whatever. Definitely a long week. I'm going to get in front of the camera here in a second. I'm sure that my voice is a lot better than my face. Sorry, I had to get some Dr. Pepper, nectar of the gods, so to speak. This is going to be a random video, not really focusing on one thing. And I will tell everybody, and I'll try to tell a couple people, my wife's cooking dinner, so I don't have anybody looking at the comments. So I won't be able to see the comments, but just wanted to discuss a few things. Maybe talk about some hands here in a minute. We may carve a hand here in a second. Been getting a lot of requests for hands. And I'm not the best, but, you know, if you can take away something and add it to, you know, what you're already doing or what you've already learned in another class, then that's mainly what it's about. I'm going to try to get over here. I can kind of see the video. I'm checking my hand here. These are random tools I had laying out. I'll move these over to the side. When doing a hand, need a couple V-tools and a knife, so we'll do those and we'll do a gouge. All right. First and foremost, I will repost this back. I will repost this back, and if a couple other sites want to put it on their group, they're definitely more than welcome to do that. What I want to talk about first and foremost is I'm a member of several wood carving groups. And with that being said, I'm the admin and created this group. So most of the stuff that I do is going to be through here, but I will share it. But in saying that, trying to say this nicely, is we are all representatives of the carving community. And in that, we try to be the best representatives that we can be. And when you have 1, 2, 3, or several people out there that's kind of being ugly, so to speak, it really doesn't do good for the wood carving community. I'm not here to call out any names or to let anybody even know what happened, but just keep in mind that in a lot of times, our opinions, if they're not positive, then they probably shouldn't be an opinion freely given. Now, what I mean by that is if I say, and this is one of the rules that I talk about on my club where people are kind of confused. If I say, hey, I'm Dwayne Gosnell and I do not like Brussels sprouts, that is perfectly okay. Or if someone else said, hey, I'm such and such and I do not like Brussels sprouts, that's perfectly okay. But the problem comes in when you say, hey, I'm Dwayne Gosnell, I don't like Brussels sprouts, and I know this is a silly analogy, and then you got somebody else who says, well, you're stupid for not liking Brussels sprouts, or I too don't like Brussels sprouts, but somebody else says, you see what I'm saying? So it's okay to have an opinion that differs from someone else. And it's okay to disagree on a lot of things, but to take it to a level of arguing about something that we're all supposed to be enjoying is kind of silly. And I've had this conversation several times today, and then I'll get straight into carving, but I want to get this off my chest. It is extremely easy, and if y'all do not know, yes, I am in law enforcement, and I have been in law enforcement for a long time, and this is not a direct quote from me. I've read it recently. It is very easy to trick someone, but it's very difficult for you to get them to believe that they have been tricked. And I need everyone to think about that for a second. It's very easy to trick somebody into believing something. And if they believe that, it's a belief that they have. They are not going to be swayed against that belief. So just be mindful. And also, everything that I tell you is free. Nobody's paying for anything that comes to you in a live video. And if that information is costing too much, then scroll away. Go to another site, whatever. Everything I offer you is just my version. Nothing that I ever tell you is absolute stone. And that goes from anything. I wear gloves. I don't wear gloves sometimes. I'm lazy, but I also don't need somebody that's beating me up for something that I'm doing, and I don't like seeing it when it's done to other people either. So with that being said, I think most of us in this carving community are extremely personable. I think some of us have some stronger opinions than others, but at the end of the day, guys, we're doing this for fun. We're all stuck in the house, so to speak, during these extremely difficult times, and I hope each and every one of you are safe, and we're going to go from there, all right? I don't have any bad jokes lined up, but if any come to mind quickly, I will let you know. First and foremost, we'll throw this glove on there, and it looks like we got several people watching, and so we will get started. If you watched the last video, we talked about the several different planes in a hand. I'm going to take my glove back off. This is a plane 1, 2, 3, 4 is where your fingernails and that last knuckle is, and then the 5th plane in the hand. And then there's like 30,000 arches this way, and they're all in groups of 3. Watch the other video on hands. It's posted everywhere. What I mean by that is we're going to start here. And again, the disclaimer, this was on one of the last videos I've done. This is a scrap block of wood, okay? Let me get the light in here a little bit better. Hopefully, well, let me look in the camera. That's looking okay. I'm going to scoot over here a little bit. So, if we look at this wrist, this is exactly what I was talking about in the last video. I've not started here, but do we see how the top of this hand and the bottom of this hand, and we've got our wrist. Look at that. Our wrist is exactly the width of our hand. Now, our thumb is going behind this can. Again, this is not a good carving, but it gives us a good example of what I'm talking about. This one was trashed, thrown in the scrap bin, so to speak. So this is rough out. So all I've done is get this arm in here, and this is where my hand's going to be. And the sleeve, I think I popped a little thing. This hand, wrist, needs to come way down in here. Now I'm going to switch over to another carving and show you what I mean. So if we look at this hand, so to speak, I'm going to turn it upside down, okay? This hand is facing outward. But if we look where his thumb's coming here, you see how thin the wrist is? So it gives the hand some definition, okay? So don't come from this thumb and then put these big old long wrist, or big thick wrist rather. All right, so the first and foremost thing that we're going to do is grab a tool that I did not leave out. I actually already put it up. All right, so before we get in the bad habit of carving this and then coming back and putting some detail and leaving that wrist, get in the habit of taking that wrist down, okay? So once we got that wrist out of the way, this was another reason I trashed this design. There's knot holes everywhere, and they're all in really bad spots. So anyway, so take this wrist way down to get it proportionately correct to the hand. So now, let me get, where are we at? So now we got this thinner wrist. We've got the accent. He is holding a can, but get in that habit. All right, here's plane number 1, which is the back of the hand. Plane number 2, which is the fingers. These fingers are way too long right now. And if we look, these kind of just wrap around the can. So if I said there's 4 planes from the hand to the fingers, and then the 5th plane is the thumb, we need to create 3 more in those joints. So I'm going to back this up about right there. There's going to be a joint here, and then this one is just the tips of the fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, these will also arch and curve. So they're going to curve away from the hand with the highest point being on the middle finger. and then the highest part being where the middle finger goes to the wrist. And if you look, right now I just drew straight lines. So what I want to do is I want to come in here, and if you look, I got to take some of that knuckle back to create more finger. So I'm going to come this way from where the middle finger is. I'll draw it in there for the camera. So if that's where the middle finger is, so, and I never measure these. I just kind of draw on here until I get it in my brain as to where I want it to be. Now there's a bunch of lines in there, but we'll clean those up. I just wanted to show you where the middle finger joint is. So the middle finger's here, that's the highest point. So I want to come from the middle finger over this way, like so. And then I'm going to flip it right around. I'm going to go from the middle finger over this way. Now the arch that's going to go around this way is not going to be big, very slight. But I want it to be noticeable. I don't want it to be straight up and down. Same way through the other joints there. And on the tip of the fingers, same way. Again, we're just carving a real quick hand here. And now I'm going to go straight through there, get rid of all of my ugly. I'm going to get rid of all of my ugly here. And when I say ugly, I mean pencil lines. Same way here. I want the highest part to be where that middle finger is going to be. I want the top of the hand to round this way, the bottom of the hand to round this way. Flat gouge, this is like a number, maybe it's a number 2, number 3. You don't have to have a big one. You can also do it with a knife. I'm grabbing this because I'm lazy and it's the one that's in my hand. So something like that, and then it comes down into where that sleeve is going to be. Like so. And again, you can have a flat plane there, just you want the representation. Now do you see how we slightly went around? We now no longer have a straight line. It curves like the knuckle curves. That's not a flat line. All right. So now the easiest thing, I said I don't measure. I don't measure when I'm starting out. I just get close. So here, I want to go just below center. So if you look at the center of your line, this pinky and this finger is less mass than the middle finger and the first finger. So if you go directly in the center and make all of your fingers the same thickness, it's going to look kind of odd. It will work, and there's some good stuff out there. And the rule of thumb is center, but I like to go just below center, then half of that, and then half of this mark down here. The other thing too is if it doesn't work out, you can always take the bottom of the pinky and narrow it down. So I'm going to draw these pencil lines back in here so you can see it. There's a knuckle across that ridge, a knuckle across that ridge, and a knuckle across that ridge. If you look at your knuckles, you don't need to start your separation at the knuckle. You want to go forward of that last knuckle. So the way I do that, let me get in camera here. So if his hand's this way, here's his knuckles. His tip of his fingers are this way. I will come in, and I'm going to try to get close here. I go straight in. Let me get a larger V-tool so you can see what I'm talking about. Straight in the center, I'm going to go straight down. And I will go, not starting at the knuckle, back here, just above it, about 1/8 of an inch. I will go in and up just at that line right there. On the opposite side of the line, in and up. So I'm creating two, and this tool is dull. So let me grab another V-tool. That's why you can never have too many tools. So I'm going in and out of the cut right before the knuckle, in and out of the cut right before the knuckle, and in and out of the cut right before the knuckle. So now it looks like you have 3 distinct, see how this one's higher and this one's higher? We're going to do the same thing over here. So this one's higher, in and out, in and out. And again, you can adjust these slightly up or slightly down. So now you have, in between there, you see how you now have the curves in between there. You don't on the outside up here and then the outside down here. So the way you address that is you slightly tilt your V-tool over, take off just the sides, just like you did there. And let me get it back in focus here. And then on the bottom, same way. I'm just using the side of that V-tool. So, all right, with just that said, this is what I was talking about, narrowing the pinky. You see how we've got a little bit under the hand? We're just going to take the rest of that off, okay? So now, if y'all seen how I'm doing this, it's kind of weird. And I can see through the camera screen that this finger is a little bit bigger than the rest of them. What I can do is just widen that finger. I don't want to go up into here. I want to take mass out of this finger. So all I'm going to do is come in here and separate that finger just a little bit more. Same cuts right through there. So now the fingers are a lot more even, but there's a bigger gap in there. And that's okay. Nobody stands around with their hands just like that. They've got a little bit of a relief in there. Now, the simplest way I dress these fingers on the outside is, again, you can do it with a gouge, and you can make them really, really round by cutting them. But if you have the same V-tool in your hand and you just clip this part into the pinky, so you turn the blade back, barely touch the pinky, a nice separation between this side and that side, 2 cuts. Don't think that this tool is going to be the exact width you need. So cut this side and then cut that side. Same way here, we know that the index finger is shorter, so we're going to go more of an angle over here to go ahead and get some length off of there. Then we can touch and round it, and then we can round it here. So now when you come back and address the side of the can, all you have to do is barely touch those around the side of the hand. You don't have to carve, with a lot of force. That's why when I started with that other V-tool, it wasn't cutting good, because there's a sharpness issue. I may have not sharpened it enough. I may have hit something without knowing it the last time I did it. Don't continue struggling with that tool. If something's not cutting and you knew your tool was sharp, stop what you're doing and don't force it through it. You're just going to rip and dig. So with that being said, I'm trying to get into the screen over here and see. All right. So now we've already got some little marks here. So if we take, not marks, curves. So if we take whichever, so in other words, a lot of people say, well, you have to have a 3/8 number 9 bent back, insert your favorite name here tool. No, you need the tool that fits the project you're working on. And what I mean by that is, if somebody's using this behemoth, which is 1 inch and something wide, they can probably use that in there and manipulate their cuts. So if they say, hey, I'm using this tool, and you don't feel comfortable with that tool, I'm very much a believer of use the tool that fits. This is about, I guess it would be about 1/4 inch, probably a number 5-ish, but it fits. It fits in between my knuckles. So with that curve going around this way on each knuckle, I want to address each finger individually. I don't want to just cut a cut here and on the exact even opposite side cut a cut the other way. So between these knuckles here, the first finger, I want to create just a little bit of a curve with that gouge, and then I'm going to come down here and between those 2 knuckles, create a little bit of a curve. The chip did not come out, that's fine. Between these 2 knuckles, it's got a little bit of a curve with the V-tool, but we're just going to add a little bit more, same thing. And then I'm going to come and do the second set of knuckles a lot quicker. What I'm doing is I'm just slicing slightly in between those knuckles, and now just on the tip of that last knuckle and or your fingernail. So now that I'm being lazy, I flip it around upside down, and I do the same thing. I start at the top, go between each knuckle, start at the top, go between each knuckle, again, working my way down. And some of those are not going to come out, and that's okay. You can toss, or you can flick them, pick them, brush them, whatever you want to do. But the easiest way to come through here is now you can come in with a knife and just come in here and do a straight line and then touch each one of them. And I don't mean pick it, touch it. If it doesn't fall freely out, move it back and forth with your tip of your blade to see which side it's hanging on, and then address each one individually. Same way here. We're not picking those out of there like that. We're touching them to see if they will break off clean. Sometimes they're cut clean, but we see that it's still hanging in there. You got to realize that that's a very sharp piece of wood sticking down in there, and it may be just holding because it's just a wedge down in there. Sometimes all you have to do is touch it, but if you go down in there digging, that's when you break your knife tips. And sometimes all it needs to be done is touched. When they don't need to be, or when they are not coming out because you've touched them, that's when you go in there and make the cut. Make sure I'm not out of camera. Now, if you look, we got some curve going in that hand, but if you look this way, it's still kind of straight. I'm going to take that same tool and address each finger again, and I'm taking ever so slightly, just a little bit off the top. Now remember when we went through with the big gouge, that's a flat surface. This one's a little bit smaller. This is number 5. So we're going to go slightly lower. You don't have to get this thing super, super round to give it the appearance of being rounder. And on the very tip, what I like to do is go to the end and make you a spot where that fingernail is going to live. Your fingernails, you know, they are dented inward. If you see this ridge right here, this fingernail ever so slightly digs in. You see what I'm saying? And those of you who know me know that I do hold my tools funny. That's not for your amusement. That's unfortunately how I learned, and it works for me. So however you hold the tool and whatever tool you choose to use, that is up to you. Now, with this being said, now I like to go to the small V-tools. And I just so happen to have the deluxe beaver set. Actually, this is a box. Some of you may have seen it. Some of you may know that Rich Smithson and Steve Brown kind of started calling me Beaver at the same time. And the nickname kind of stuck, and it's cute. Beavers are cute. I mean, look at that guy there. So this kind of became my logo. What this is, it just slides out. This is the Dockyard Helvies knife set tool set that I got, and I wanted a spot for them because my carving box is full, but I could slide this in front of the carving box. So I'm going to get one of these tiny little V-tools, okay? Now, I just wanted to really show you my box. I kind of love that thing. It's made out of cedar. So anyway, let's get back in the screen here. So you're going to have wrinkles in your knuckles, and then you're going to carve your fingernails. I like to do just 1 or 2, and I don't like them to be perfectly symmetrical. So what I mean by that is when I come down here and do these little wrinkle lines, I don't know how much that's going to come in there. I don't want a wrinkle line from here all the way over to there. I just want the representation of those lines in there. When you get, I was watching a video last night, and you know, Dave Stetson said about symmetry. He, you know, again, I'm not, I will never go against anything that Dave says, but I will agree with what he said, that it's right. You don't want to get to the point where everything is perfectly balanced. Nothing in your face is perfectly balanced, but you want the proportions to be there. I went off camera a little bit there. You want the proportion and the representations to be there. So it pays us no dividend to go in there and make every one of these the same length, the same direction, because if you look at my knuckle, none of them I may just do one line on one and I may do three on the other. You just want the representation. Same way with the fingernail. I'm going to go part way across, and I'm going to do the up and down because it's easier with the grain direction. Now, when you're doing the fingernail against the grain or you're cutting across the grain, you want to make sure that you have the sharpest tool that you have available. Because when you're going this way across the grain or even in end grain, if you don't have a sharp tool, you're going to break and rip through your carving. And there's no greater aggravation than getting to the point where you're setting in detail and then stuff starts ripping and tearing because you have a tool. I'll tell you, it took me a long time to figure out V-tools, and I'll tell you that the best money I ever spent was going to a show or a club, which is kind of bad these days because we can't just run out to a show because they're all being canceled. Sorry, my kids are in the background. So if you have a service, this is not a plug for anybody. If you've got a guy locally that sharpens carving tools, or you got a guy in a club, or you have a company that you send stuff to, do it. Pay the $2 or $3 to save the tool, because if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, you will ultimately destroy your tool, or you're going to get bad results. So, I try to do everything myself, but early on, that was one thing that I would spend that extra, $10-15 for, is having that weird tool sharpened. I'm babbling at this point. If we look, I don't know how good that's, I'm going to stand up, try to get behind the camera. I don't know how that's showing up. But just with a couple of tools there, we got plenty of curve in our fingers. They've got the definition, this one's shorter than this one. This is your longest one. And then from this point, this is higher than this one, and it's higher than this one. Same way with if you look, I'm not manipulating my hand. The middle finger, you're going to see it. Same way here, you're going to see two of those, and the middle finger is the thickest point. So with your carving, make sure they're arched this way. Okay, so with the hand right here, they're going to be arched this way, all the way around the hand. It's going to have that arch or curve, and then around every knuckle and the tips is going to be curved inward. Same way here, that is not a straight line no matter what you do. Even if you turn it, it's still not a straight line. And it's just a little bitty thing like that. Again, I am not the best at hands. There's people that destroy me on every aspect of carving. But it's just the little things that they start adding up, and you start getting better just by doing little things. Now, you can go back in here and probably round these like crazy. But again, we're not looking for super high definition. We're looking for caricature. We want the representation. If you want to exaggerate the hands, they could be slightly bigger. You could have long, crazy alien fingers if you want to. But you still, you start doing these straight up and down fingers where all the fingers end up, I have to bend fingers. But, you end up with them straight. You see how much, to get that hand straight, you see how much how jacked up that becomes. So a very simple thing is to start clipping those fingers back, getting a little bit of shape. My wife's giving me the evil eye, and so I think our dinner's about ready over here in North Carolina. I know we're all stuck in the house, guys. I'll try to do a video tomorrow, a little bit more mapped out, planned out. And this was going to be a surprise, but since I already threw it in here, this is my representation. Let me try to get this in here. I tried to do, I don't know if this will come in here. I did the eyes in a set of glasses, okay? Now, I've done glasses before, and they're okay, but I paint them dark like they're sunglasses and act like I'm cool when I do it. but I've never attempted the glasses in there. And the guys that do it really well, do it really well. I struggled on this, and it got smaller and smaller, but I kept looking at Dave Stetson's stuff, and funny enough, this guy kind of looks to me a little bit like Dave. Now, Dave doesn't have a full beard. I put that on there, but when I kind of squint at him a little bit and cross my eyes and turn out the lights, it kind of looks like Dave Stetson a little bit. You know, not much. But anyway, guys, I'm showing you this to tell you, not everybody can do everything awesomely, and unless you are Dave Stetson, Chris Hammock, Marv Kaiserstadt. I could name on and on and on. There's some of those guys are just absolutely amazing, and you know, us mere mortals are jealous of their talent. But what you got to understand is those guys started somewhere as well. Start with something, focus on that, get proficient in that area, and then get proficient in another one. Before you know it, you're going to start, all this stuff's going to come together, and you're going to really be pleased with your results. But you should never be happy with where you are. You should always strive to be better. And I think that's what makes us a better artist, is never being happy and always being hungry to strive better. Guys, y'all have a good evening. I know this is my weekend starting because I got a weird rotating schedule, but I will come to you live later, possibly tomorrow or Saturday. We'll try to come up with something. If you want to private message me what you'd like me to see do a video on, don't hesitate to do that as well. Have a good evening, guys. Stay safe.